seated. With this week's double Torah portion, Matot-Masei, we conclude the book of Numbers. And the second of the two Parshiot, Masei, begins with a lengthy review of the various journeys our ancestors made in the wilderness on their trek from Egypt to the Promised Land. It's pretty dry stuff. Vayisu v'nei Yisrael me Ramses, and the children of Israel set out from Ramses, vayachanu b'Sukkot, and they encamped at Sukkot. This continues for nearly 50 verses. The Israelites set out from here and encamped there. They set out from there and encamped here. All told, we read that the children of Israel made 42 stops, a little more than one per year during their 40 years of wandering. Now, what are we to make of this number 42? It's not a classic typological number like 40 years of wandering, 7 days of creation, or 10 commandments. In fact, this number seems so insignificant that Rashi goes to great lengths to undo it. He worries that 42 stops over 40 years makes God seem cruel. So he takes away 14 here because they happened in the first year before Moses sent the scouts, and then another 8 there because they happened in the last year after Aaron died. And he arrives at only 20 stops over 38 years, because that's much better. Maimonides, on the other hand, points to this passage listing these 42 stops as a paradigmatic example of narratives in the Torah that seem entirely superfluous and unnecessary. So much for 42. But we know better about the number 42. It's the number of Jackie Robinson and Mariano Rivera. It's the number of kilometers in a marathon. It's the number of lines per page in the Gutenberg Bible. And for those of us who are fans of Douglas Adams's classic science fiction novel, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, it also happens to be the answer to the ultimate question of life, the universe, and everything. As The Hitchhiker's Guide tells it, a group of hyper-intelligent super beings, disguised as ordinary mice, build a supercomputer called Deep Thought to answer the ultimate question. 7.5 million years later, Deep Thought spits out 42. For years, readers speculated as to the significance of 42. Proposed explanations included everything from Egyptian gods to Tibetan monks to binary code. Matot-Masei did not make the list. Adams finally puts the question to rest in 1993. In an online discussion group for fans, he wrote, "It was a joke. It had to be a number, an ordinary, smallish number, and I chose that one. I sat at my desk, stared into the garden, and thought, 42 will do. I typed it out. End of story." But that wasn't the end of the story. 3 years ago, fans of the novel celebrated the 42nd anniversary of its release. References to 42 abound in popular culture, and if you ask, Google, Bing, and ChatGPT some variation of the question, what is the answer to everything? The answer you will get is 42. It's the revenge of the nerds. So what does all of this mean? It means that the meaning of a text doesn't have to be intentional to be significant. Sometimes an author stares into the garden and picks a number. And it also means that meaning is something we can make for ourselves. When we care so deeply about a story, when we believe in its power to transform us, and when we find fellow travelers to share it with us, we can make every word of a story contain worlds. Which brings us back to Matot-Masei. It's not exactly correct to say that the number 42 is Jewishly insignificant. The number of lines in a column in your typical Torah scroll, 42. The number of words in Ve'ahavta, I know you're all going to take out your Sidurim and count, 42. And according to the Talmud, the most sacred, the most secret, and the most ineffable name of God that was spoken once a year in the Holy of Holies on Yom Kippur has, you guessed it, 42 letters. What does it all mean? What worlds do these words contain? Rabbi Shefa Gold points to a teaching about Matot-Masei by the Baal Shem Tov. The Baal Shem Tov taught that the collective experiences of our ancestors along each and every one of those 42 individual stops are relived in the individual lives of each and every Jewish person. We spiritually follow in our ancestors' literal footsteps. And building on this teaching, Rabbi Gold suggests that the Baal Shem Tov's atomic view of our life's journey calls upon us to pay attention to each of these 42 stages as they unfold, and to seek the blessing that each one holds for us. And then she sneaks up on us with the answer to the ultimate question. She writes, "It is more than a strange coincidence that the secret, unpronounceable name of God has 42 letters. Perhaps each letter represents one stage in our journey, one step on our way to God." 42 Steps to God is not a great name for a self-help book, but it is the truth. We can't take shortcuts. We don't get to skip seemingly superfluous passages in the Torah. We have to read every word in every one of those columns of 42 lines, because we won't find the meaning of life, the universe, and everything in the calculations of some supercomputer. We'll find it as we make meaning from the stories that provoke us, that inspire us, and bring us together. Shabbat Shalom.
This Shabbat, we are reading from double portion Matot-Masei.